Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gavel Strikes. This is our second episode. We've had
some little bit of
little technical difficulties when it comes to sound. So we were getting a terrible echo. And the reason that we're getting echoes is because we actually have a guest today.
Yes.
So we have our first ever guest. First off, I am Brian Wiedman.
And I'm Xavier Chavez.
And my buddy here knows art. I know comics and a little bit of art, but he's the art guy and the comic guy. Knows more art than I do. I know more comics. I think we work really well together.
Yeah,
right? That's why we do this and have fun. Today we've got a great show for you. We do have a guest. If you saw our email blast, you saw that Yaniv Ellencry is going to be here. I really hope I said. He'll yell at me if I didn't. But you also know him as Stray Flexen from Instagram. So we will bring him on in a little bit. A couple things I wanted to go over. First of all, I don't know. Have you looked at this week's sale in comics?
I've looked at the comic art, but not the comic
art. You should look at the art too. I had to do the newsletter, so that's what I was doing before I came here.
Okay.
And the amount of comic duplicate key books we have this week is unbelievable. And when I say unbelievable, I mean astounding. The lineup this week is ridiculous. You want to hear?
Of course, in different grades.
In different grades, absolutely.
Okay.
We don't put same grades in the same auction. We do that for the buyer's protection.
Yes.
Okay, we don't want anybody harmed with their prices.
And keys in different grade don't really compete against each other.
Right, exactly. Somebody going for a 9.0 isn't going for a 7.0
or a
isn't
6.
going for a 6.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing.
And a guy that's going for a 3 or 4 isn't going for a 6.
That's true.
So.
The prices are way too different.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, you want to hear some multiples that I wrote down? I just jotted these down. This is just some of them. Okay, this is how many multiples we have of key issues. We have Amazing Spider-Man 2, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 3 copies of 129, the first appearance of Punisher, 3 copies of 300. We have 3 copies of Daredevil 1, all in different grades.
I saw those.
Wide range. Of course you did, because you're a huge Daredevil fan. 2 copies of Conan 1. We have FF10, Fantastic Four number 10. We have 3 copies, including a 9.0, which is beautiful if you haven't seen it. We have 12, 13, 14, or 16, 3 copies of number 45. I mean, the list goes on and on. 3 copies of Ghost Rider 1 and 3 copies of Hulk 181. First appearance of Wolverine.
And we have one of them here.
And we have one of them here. There's a reason I brought that for you guys. That'll probably be the first thing I talk about. I really wanted to show this lot to you. It's really important. I get a lot of questions, and I know you do too, about displaying your books, right?
And how to display them, and where to display them.
Why do you display them? And what do you tell people?
Again, usually I'll tell them if you really, really want to display them, I'll give the suggestion like comic book art, where you'll go to a framer, ask for museum quality glass, UV protection, and it only has like 99% UV protection. So keep it away on a wall that's away from the light. You'll still get ambient light, but it won't make that much of a damage as it would if you had direct light.
Right. So the reason we're talking about this is because of what I'm going to show you. As you know, Hulk 181 has a very rich red cover. I tell people if they really want, and this comes directly from a local comic shop near us, he says, take a really high-res photo of the book you love, display it on your wall that way, but keep the book itself in a nice dark place, because you will fade the colors. It doesn't matter if it's digital lighting, ambient lighting. At some point over time, you will fade the covers.
LED light, everything.
And they love, sunlight loves reds and yellows.
Yeah.
It loves them. It loves to eat them. So my first item that I wanted to show you was what happens to a sun-faded book. Tommy, can you bring that up? It's that Hulk, the Hulk 181, and you can see how faded this book is on your screen. It is. There is no red anymore. It's more orange.
It's like a gold color, basically.
I've actually seen a book go completely gray just to the paper underneath, almost the original color of the paper. So this is still a 3.0. And if you can't afford a 6, a 9, obviously you're going to want a copy of the book. But this is why we say, as the experts, don't display your books on a wall, especially in sunlight.
Especially right next to a window, or where the window sun somehow gets to the piece at one point. Again, the CGC does their best to do an archival type of protection, but the plastic is not UV coated or anything like that.
Right.
So.
Otherwise you'd be spending $200 for a CGC book instead of whatever they charge. We're here at Heritage. Remember, when we take these in, they're not our books. We're here to preserve the history. We've been doing so for a very long time. We're here to preserve the books for as long as we can. It looks like we have a question.
Just real quick. Trilogy Comics said, "Tell Brian I said hi."
How you doing? Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We love having viewers, and we will take questions and answers.
Always at the end. Yeah.
We want you to ask questions. That's what we're here for. Thanks for chiming in. Appreciate it. So anyway, getting back to the sun faded, please be careful with your books. We are very worried about that. We worry about that for you. To show you, we had a book that was left up on a bread rack, and it was left up really high. Right. I remember when that was found, it was completely gone. The whole cover was gone. It was forgotten there. It was a 9.8. It no longer is.
Well, and that's the other thing is when we receive a book like that, and let's say that 3 was graded a 6 because it was at 1.6. and it faded to that point, we wouldn't be able to sell it. We'd have to send it back to CGC and have it regraded, because there's no way. We
cannot falsely.
Yes. Even though it's already in that holder, it no longer is that great.
Right. A lot of that is subjective. This case, it absolutely is not. When it's that extreme, we absolutely have to do what's right by the buyer and the seller. We just have to. So we're not trying to harm anybody, but we also have to maintain our integrity.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to get to our guest next. This is really a first for us. We're happy to have him. His name is Yaniv. I hope you're right. Is it Ellen Cry? Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's Ellen Cry.
Yeah,
can I hear you? Can you talk?
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear him, Tom.
No, you can't hear me.
That is going to be an issue.
Oh, no.
But I'm sure everybody at home can hear him. I cannot. So that is an issue and a technical difficulty, but I will be able to at least ask questions and everything. Yaniv, if you have questions back for me, I would type them. That way Tommy can get me answers. Hold on, he's coming in right now. Not happy. We'll figure it out.
See if you can just go ahead and turn on the speakers on your computer again and disconnect your.
I don't know if my.
You got to take off the headphones again?
Yeah, they got to get a good distance away. I apologize for the technical difficulties, people. We've never done this before, so trying to figure out what's going on here. It's never a dull moment at Heritage. Never.
First for everything.
Unmute, maybe that'll work. How about
Does that work?
Hey, talk now.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Nope.
No.
That didn't work. But at least I'm not getting an echo.
Should I rejoin?
Mic volume. Poor Tommy is starting.
Yeah, he's gonna put the phone right here. So there you go.
Okay, that'll work. There we go. I got you.
Perfect.
Okay. You got me?
I got him here. No, that's good. I got him here.
Okay,
so I can hear Yaniv. Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's all good.
So we brought Yaniv in. There's a few reasons. First of all, you're one of the first people I ever met on Instagram. This has been going on for a few years now. We've known each other for years, and it's been great. Yaniv is a big time collector. He loves the Golden Age along with me. He loves all things comics, and we brought him on just to kind of show off his collection. What do you collect and why?
Thank you for bringing me on. First of all, I really appreciate it, Brian. And likewise, when you joined Instagram,
We're a
it was
little laggy.
okay. You can hear me. All right, sorry about that. So I was just saying thanks for having me on. It's really exciting, and I was really happy to kind of connect with you on Instagram, because when you came on, you brought a new face to Heritage, at least to the social media aspect of it, being able to share the pieces that you get actually kind of in person with the photos and doing the live streams and the live shows. It kind of brought another aspect to the community that Heritage didn't have before, other than just like the online bidding and going on the website. So that was pretty exciting. But I personally love to collect the older stuff. So the Golden Age, the rare stuff, the original comic art, kind of anything related to comics, especially comic history. I love that. So I brought something on really interesting to show you guys today that has to do with important comic history. Related to comics, especially comic history. I love that. So I brought something on really interesting to show you guys today that has to do with important comic history. Related to comics.
Yeah, and it's really cool because you and I talk a lot about history of comics, especially 1950 to 55. X and I talk about this a lot. So let's bring up your first piece, the comics industry piece, and why comics are bad.
Yeah.
Tommy, can you show that?
So let's bring up your first piece.
So I'll just wait for this piece to come up.
And why comics are bad.
Yeah.
Tommy, can you show that?
There you go.
Oh, perfect. So
Yeah, so we're a little laggy, guys. Just we're a little delayed, so bear with us, but it'll be fun.
So here we have a little 32-page pamphlet that's called "The Case Against Comics," and it's done by Gabriel Lynn in 1944. And this is one of the earliest actual publications regarding like basically a censorship or a call against comics, which, as you could see in the title there, and it predates Seduction of the Innocent, done by Dr. Wortham, which everyone knows about, by 10 years. So that book was published in 1954, and this was published in 1944. Also, it was done by Catalytical Guild, which, as many of you know, the Golden Age collectors know, they did a lot of the anti-commie covers during the late 40s and 50s, like Is This Tomorrow, which is one of the probably most printed Golden Age comics of all time. I think they made 4 million copies of it. But this was just a really interesting book to find so early in the Golden Age, where in kind of like the mid 40s, where they were already advocating against comics. And basically he was saying that there was an increased link to juvenile delinquency, which sounds pretty familiar because it's pretty much what Dr. Wortham said 10 years later. And he used 92 comic books and I think roughly 1,000 comic strips to come to this conclusion. He surveyed those comics, and he was saying that the superheroes had no regard for the law, and that it's not as good reading as the older dime novels of the time, where it was more of good versus evil, and good was the law, and evil was just evil forces. So there was kind of superheroes taking the law into their own hands, and he didn't like that, and kind of like that, saying it was an un-American idea that they were pushing on the kids, and they were kind of worried about that, as well as all the other kind of seductive, suggestive covers and violence that they were kind of showing. But what I find really interesting about this one is that it really only got worse from here. Comics weren't that bad in the early 40s. This was before EC really came out swinging, and that's kind of when Wortham came out, and they really try to cut that down.
Right.
And that's kind of when Wortham came out, and they really try to cut that down.
Yeah, it's really interesting that they targeted Bugs Bunny too. They targeted Dell Comics. They targeted every comic in the industry. And I think the number is really weird. Like the number is there were 150 million Americans and 125 million of them or 120 million of them were reading comics. So it wasn't just, Billy on the corner and all his friends. It was mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandparents. They were all reading comics. So they were literally targeting the whole of America with this.
Yes, that's correct. They even went on to publish another book, an 8-page summary. So it almost looks the same. And actually, Heritage sold one. That was the only one I could find online. And it also says the case against comics. It was just 8 pages, but it didn't have any of the craziness on the cover. It was just a black cover with the kids reading the comic books. So it's kind of interesting. It also says the case against comics. It was just 8 pages, but it didn't have any of the craziness on the cover. It was just a black cover with the kids reading the comic books. It's kind of interesting.
That's great.
Yeah, again,
I'm a big part of that history. I love that history because it was the downfall of comics.
for a time. Well, a lot of
200
publishing companies closed.
250 publishers were publishing at the time in 1944, and by 1955, only 5 real ones made it through.
5 huge ones.
Right. You've got DC, Marvel, Harvey, and then you had Fawcett made it for a little bit, but then died.
And Marvel wasn't Marvel; it was Timely and Atlas.
Right.
So.
Dell/Gold Key made it.
Yeah.
And then there was, I can't remember what the 5th one is off the top of my head, but there is a 5th one, barely made it.
Again,
so
they
were all gone.
That was a big deal. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think a part of that was
Bugs Bunny, which it was a cartoon, but then they were saying how he was cross-dressing and stuff like that.
Right.
It's very far-fetched. Again, he would do it for comedic relief, but vaudeville would also do it and stuff like that. So why would a cartoon be any different from the theater that we were watching and stuff like that?
And it's been proven also that Wortham faked his doctor's his own
I mean
information his own.
It kind of relates
to suit his needs. Shocking, right?
Yeah. it reminds me of like the video game controversy of the early 2000s, where they're talking about video game violence and what's the difference between video game violence with they have movie violence and TV violence and all the other forms of media. But I think people like to attack certain forms, like the comics in the 50s were like the video games of the 2000s, so it's very similar in that regard. People like to attack certain forms, like the comics in the 50s were like the video games of the 2000s, so
right.
Very similar in that regard.
I can't hear. No. So let's go on to your next piece. What do you want to show next?
Sure. Let's see what you guys have pulled up. I guess you could just pull one up and then I'll talk about it. Oh, perfect. So this is the really classic, famous Golden Age cover done by
Silver Streak 6.
Yeah, Silver Streak 6 is one of my favorite pieces. It's done by Jack Cole. It's if you're a Golden Age collector, as you know, this is one of the most coveted classic covers of its time. But it's a cool book because it doubles not just as a classic cover, but also as a very key issue, as it's the first appearance of the Golden Age Daredevil, who's also a really beloved Golden Age character that actually had his own run. Pretty long run at that. He had quite a lot of issues in it. And, this is one of those, pieces of its time where they had a villain named as the Claw. He was a yellow villain. They were kind of fighting with the yellow peril at that time, and that's where they created the Claw. And this is probably the most menacing and striking Claw covers out of that run. There's only a few Claw covers in the whole run, and they're probably the most sought after books from there. And this is the biggest one of them all. And I just wanted to point out, I'm not sure if people know about this because it's quite interesting, but if you kind of zoom in or look right into the Claw's eyes, look closely, there's 2 skulls.
Absolutely. And Daredevil in the Golden Age has nothing to do with Daredevil in the Silver Age.
A completely different character. They had to rename him. They called him now the Death-Defying Devil because of the whole legality issue with the naming. Completely different character. They had to rename him.
Right.
They called him now the Death-Defying Devil.
Yeah, that of course. So this is a great book. We don't see many. I don't think I have ever seen one come through Heritage. Now we have had them, but I have never held one, which is rare. because I usually hold almost everything.
Yeah, no, it's one that kind of, I guess, comes out in drones. A lot of people that collect these types of books, as you know, the Golden Age collectors they really love their stuff. So it's not always about the money or if it's time to let it go. They want to hold on to it. So it's hard to be a buyer in this market sometimes for the classic covers.
Right.
It's hard to be a buyer in this market sometimes for the classic covers.
Well, something like that is when it comes up, you get it. It doesn't matter if it's a 2.5, it's a 7.0. It's get it if you have a chance.
And then you upgrade. And then you upgrade later.
And then you upgrade later.
Yeah, it could be missing the back cover. Honestly, it just as long as the front cover's there, I think with those classic covers, that's enough. It could be missing the back cover. Honestly, it just as long as the front cover's there, I think with those classic covers, that's enough.
Right. Okay, so how about your painting? Tell us about your painting.
So this kind of connects lightly into the last piece, but this is by Alex Ross. It was done for Project Superpowers 2, sorry, and it's the original cover art, and it actually showcases the Golden Age Daredevil, as we were talking about, who's now the death-defying devil, and the Flame, who is another classic Golden Age hero. So that whole title was trying to resurrect a lot of the Golden Age classic heroes. A lot of them kind of went into public domain, and so Dynamite kind of brought a lot of them back. And I just love the art. I mean, Alex Ross is probably my favorite modern artist. He really captures a very surreal, realistic take on superheroes, and his art is just breathtaking, especially seeing it in person. You know, it almost looks like a real snapshot of what heroes would be if they really existed. His art is just breathtaking, especially seeing it in person. You know, it almost looks like a real snapshot of what heroes would be if they really existed.
I'm kind of surprised that he didn't bring his Schomburg piece and didn't show that one off, because he spent years hounding me about what Schomburg would show up in a sale. You know, get him pictures, show him this, show him that, because that was all you ever went for was Schomburg.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that you branch out quite a bit as to whatever you like. You know,
I wanted to bring up, you know, some different stuff to you. So I had some of the Golden Age books, and I wanted to bring them an art from a different era as well, but also still connecting to the Golden Age. And that's the beauty of collecting. I mean, even though Golden Age art per se is very hard to get and find these days. I mean, it doesn't even come up. It's not even about the money, but you can sometimes collect modern art that kind of connects to those characters or that era as a way to almost collect Golden Age art. That's how I look at it. But you can sometimes collect modern art that kind of connects to those characters or that era as a way to almost collect Golden Age art. That's how I look at it.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, I think we have time for one more piece. Tommy, let's put the next one up. And this was, I remember, one of your kind of holy grails. I kind of hate that term. I'm not a fan of holy grails.
Well, your grail.
It's your grail. Just in general, I just don't like the term. But this kind of applies because it's not easy to get a Cap 1.
Oh, again, in any shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most important Marvel comics, I'd say, to come out. It's another thing that a lot of people talk about regarding Cap 1, outside of being the first Captain America and first Bucky, first Red Skull, which obviously are a big deal, but it's also the first Hitler cover, which is quite interesting because Hitler covers these days in the last few years have really seen an increase in demand. And really, there's been a big boom for people collecting them. And this being the first one kind of started it all. You know, Jack Kirby, Joe Simon, as everyone mostly knows, they created Captain America. They kind of went out with a bang on this issue, and they were battling, you know, the Axis head on when they put this cover out there. Even so far to the fact that the Timely offices got death threats from Nazis that were in America at that time. This was before World War II started, and it was kind of the beginning of people realizing what Nazis are, who they are, and what they really stood for. So there were pro-socialist and pro-Nazi party people in the States. So this kind of angered them, and they got death threats at the office, and they replied back with putting Hitler on another cover on Captain America #2, also getting his plans defeated. So it's kind of funny. And they replied back with putting Hitler on another
Yeah, don't bow down to bullies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so historically, as you said, Cap One's important because of all the first appearances, but you have to remember at the time what's going on in the world. Comic books were used as propaganda. They were used to get people to buy into the war, defense stamps, even if the war hadn't started, war bonds, all these things, rationing. If you look at even Looney Tunes and Donald Duck, they were a part of the war effort. Everything was part of the war effort.
Comics and
right?
stories, everything.
So it was so important because the whole world was engulfed in this problem. We've had it easy for 80 years. This hasn't happened. It's been small parts of the world here and there, but this literally was a full world war. And the propaganda that was used for people, that's what comics were used for. That was the medium to get across to kids at a young age how bad the Nazis were. And everybody was reading, as I said.
Yeah.
So even the parents understood it. It was important.
Definitely, and I think that's what kind of appeals to a lot of Golden Age collectors, is that you're not just collecting comics, you're collecting pieces of history, right? So it's basically World War II history. And the comics went so far as to remove staples to help save the war effort, right? To save on lead. So the comics generally had one staple during the war years.
Absolutely.
In the middle. So that's why a lot of them are missing centerfolds and they've fallen out or they get detached because it's only attached to one as opposed to two. So I think that's also another interesting kind of facet to Golden Age comics that not a lot of people think about. So you kind of want to take them, honestly, if you're just getting into it and you just want to start collecting Golden Age, try not to be too picky on condition like you were mentioning before. It's hard
not to mention the paper drives. I mean, let's face it.
Well, they printed less. It was 10 and 10. Remember from 16 and 12 and 12 and 12. Then they did 10 and 10 pages, and then again the paper drives and stuff like that. From 16 and 12, 12 and 12.
Yeah, no, definitely. They had to save on paper too. And like you were mentioning with the war bonds, they would always have a little ad for that, or they would say, buy these war bonds to bomb Hitler or to, slap a, whatever. They would have all these crazy Axis sayings that are obviously really wrong now. I don't even want to say them, but it was all part of the war effort at that time. They didn't care. They had to. They had to
Don't say it.
whatever. But it was all part of the war effort at that time. They didn't care. They had to. Don't say it.
And again, it's also a time period where the whole United States came together as one.
Right.
And we saw that as a common enemy that we had to sacrifice and help towards fighting them and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was quite a different era, and I think that the comics, for better or for worse, they played a big impact on the propaganda during that time. That I think by the end of the war, people were kind of sick of the superheroes and fighting the Nazis and all of that. They kind of wanted something fresh and new, and that's when the romance genres and the horror came out. So sort of around then, to give people a break from that, and that's kind of what they wanted to lean towards after that. The romance genres and the horror came out. So sort of around then, to give people a break from that, and that's kind of what they wanted to lean towards after that.
Well, great. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show as our first guest of all things. Maybe things technically didn't go very well, but we will start ironing those problems out. We promise we will iron them out at some point. Yaniv, thank you so much for coming on, and we're going to see more of you, right?
Yeah, no, I'll be around. I'm actually heading to Dallas, so I'll be pretty close to you guys, and I'm pretty excited to see what the future holds. Yeah, no, I'll be around. I'm actually heading to Dallas, so I'll be pretty close to you guys, and I'm pretty excited to see what the future holds.
That's great.
So-
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get on with the rest of our show. And if you need anything, as always, or you have, any questions for Yaniv in what he collects, you can always talk to him at his hashtag or on Instagram. What is that?
It's at Straight Flexing, just like it's shown here on the bar there. So if you ever want to reach out, have any questions about Golden Age comics, or just want to chat, please feel free to do so. I'm happy to talk. Just like it's shown here on the bar there. So if
Great.
you ever want to reach out, have any questions about Golden Age comics, or just want to chat, please feel free to do so. I'm happy to talk.
Great. Well, thank you very much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
It's always great.
Have a good one, man. We'll talk to you later.
Likewise. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
Great. Well, thank you very much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's always great. Have a good one, man. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Now that can now.
Wow. Sorry for the lagging there. It
And
was not fun. We will fix that. We were having problems getting the audio without echoing, which is very unusual for the platform you were using. So we do apologize. It
was interesting. Let's say the least.
It was ear piercing is what it was. Yeah, interesting is a nice word for it. Ear piercing is brutal. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on to what we normally do.
Yeah.
It was great to have a guest. I think we're going to have more of them. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we will iron all that out
before we have
even
another
start
guest.
a guest. So we're going to go on to Xavier's picks and what he's got for you.
So this week, again, comic book art wise, we have a part of history, like, again, comic strips, since those are pretty much how comics started before they were books, and I've gotten into them recently. So right here we have a Milton Caniff, Terry and the Pirates, and actually there's a Steve Canyon behind it, which is also by Milton Caniff. These particular pieces I brought in because Milton Caniff did these two strips, and he was very popular for them. Apart from that, Terry and the Pirates and Steve Canyon were both pilots. But here you can see the artistry that he's famous for, the shadowing, the progression of the story. Again, the women that he would draw, because whenever a strip has a dragon lady or another woman in it, they usually tend to be more. For example, this strip I also brought because it's under $500, and you can see these two panels with the great shadowing and him in the jungle waiting to pounce and save the girl. And this one also with the difference of featherings and inks to create texture and different shadows. This one, again, under $500. This one is under $700. It's around $600 right now because it has a woman. But again, great examples of strip art, great artists, very famous for these two works, and just great examples that, again, affordable art that you can get rather than getting superhero art. So another piece, again, going with the strip art, is this other piece here, which is another master of the work, is Al Cap. His full name was Alan Kaplan, and he shortened it afterwards. There's very few pieces that are signed, very early pieces that are signed Alan Kaplan. I actually know a collector that has one. But again, you can see the women beautiful women in the strip, which always goes for a premium, and the cartoony style of the parents of little Abner. And again, a great portrait shot of little Abner in the last panel, and saying boy killed, which of course he's not, but there was a situation where they think that he died. So again, another great piece by a master of his medium, and one of the things he's most famous for. Frank Frazetta did some of the inking when he first started for Al Cap, and those will usually go for a premium. Again, a piece under $500, which for what it is, it's again a steal. $500 now, again, because I have several pieces here that I can show you. The last piece is actually an example of very affordable now, and we had a similar example in last week, which ended up around in the $10,000 range.
So when it comes to something like the Al Cap and the Beautiful Woman and the one panel and stuff like that, it's it's hard for us to tell you what something's going to be worth.
Correct.
We have to go by, especially with artwork. I can tell you with a comic book all day long because I have comps, I have GP analysis, I go collect. I can look at all those numbers in real-time data as to what a grade goes for in what book, right?
And it's like a stock,
with
the last sales and everything.
Right.
It's,
with artwork, it is so dependent on artist, year of the artist, how early in his career it is, who worked on it, when they worked on it, what's in the panels. Are there four beautiful women in 4 panels?
Is the main
character? Is it a secondary character? There's so many more variables.
Art,
it's very hard.
Art is the most subjective thing, and people will tell you it's not subjective, but it is very subjective to the collector, to the viewer, to the buyer, and it's basically art. Art, in my definition of art, and it's the way I've always explained it to people, art invokes an emotion. Whether you love it, like Yaniv's talking about Alex Ross, how he's one of his favorite artists, and another person can say that they don't very much care for Alex Ross because of whatever their likes are or whatever dislikes are. Again, it invokes an emotion, whether to like it, dislike it, hate it, love it. That's what
Starry Night.
That's what art is. Again, and for example, with the Milton Caniff pieces, his earlier Terry and the Pirates and Steve, if I'm not mistaken, Steve Canyon as well, are much more expensive than the later stuff because all the early stuff he donated to his college or one of the colleges that he was fond of. And the majority of that time period, it's from the 40s, that college has very few pieces from that time period got out to collectors that asked for it, or he gave it to a friend. And when those pieces do come up, they command a premium 2 and 3 times what a normal Milton Caniff piece goes for. So
the little joke here is I absolutely hate Starry Night by Van Gogh. I hate it.
And
I
it's
hate
my
that
favorite
painting.
painting.
It's his favorite.
It's my favorite painting.
He lambasts me any chance he gets, but I kind of twist the knife on him on how much I hate that piece. That was shoved down my throat at a really early age, and it just spoke to me the exact opposite way. I just don't like it.
And again, the definition of art.
Right.
It's my favorite piece, and you can't stand it to save your life.
And I'll be honest, I can appreciate the fact that it was done. Like I just cannot. I can't visually like the piece.
Again, it's the art. Again, the art style, subjective.
Right. I'm not a big fan of
modern compared to or impressionistic compared to realism and stuff like that.
Right.
So.
I can't draw a stick figure to save my life, so I'm certainly not complaining, or saying that. I just don't like it.
So continuing on, I have, again, today's been a little bit of doubles, but here's 2 flash pieces, and again, under $500 both pieces. This is the great Carmen Infantino, who is known for his flash pieces. Great flash wedding. Of him fighting Impulse, Reverse Flash, and his wife, inked by Dan Adkins, a great Marvel artist, and again, under $500. And you have another great Irv Nervek flash page with his whole Rogues Gallery, and it's the Rogue Gallery convention of '77. You have one of the greatest Rogue Galleries of any superhero besides Batman, of course, but Flash has one of the greatest rogue galleries, and you have Flash pretty much in every panel, including his speeding. And it's just, again, people that say that you can't find art affordable anymore. This is to prove that these are great, artistic, beautiful pieces by some of the best artists that drew the book, and we find these pages on our weeklies all the time. Again,
it's a matter of looking hard enough. It really is.
Carmen Infantino, again, the editor of DC, one of the if not the Flash artist, and we have a page that is pretty much summarizing major parts of his life for under $300. So,
What did I say I was going to do when at the last episode? I said I was going to get something, and I absolutely, completely forgot about it. That's going to happen the same way. He shows me all these things and
And
turns
again,
me onto them, and I forget.
And I
He
stayed
didn't
away
remind
from
me.
it. And when I saw it end, I texted him and I go, "Did you get it?" And he's like, "I missed
Get
it."
what?
Basically. So again, not to have all old art, and especially this is a modern piece, but a very good and prolific new artist. He's not very new. He's been working since the 90s, but this is a Scott Koblish piece of Deadpool. Again, everybody loves Deadpool. This is a double page spread of Deadpool in every panel, killing Hydra bobs everywhere, and Deadpool's pretty much in he is in every panel, and a great Deadpool image going into the Deadpool theater. And again, a piece that's under $500 at the moment, double page spread, one of the more popular Marvel characters. Again, you can't really beat a piece of art like this to have it hanging on your wall.
Yeah, something that's not going to go for $20,000.
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be affordable to you if you want. And when we say affordable, that doesn't mean cheap.
Again, yes.
We mean it in the fact that you have to hunt and build your collection the way you want to build it, but that also doesn't always come with the best pieces ever.
Again,
it's got to be best to you.
Again, if this was a Rob Liefeld Deadpool piece, you'd be talking tens of thousands of dollars. And again, this is a Scott Koblish. Koblish did Deadpool for a very long time in the modern run, and just a great piece that you. And again, a double page spread. How many of these? It's got this huge panel right here, and it's got great paneling on the bottom. Again, storytelling and everything. So
he's pointing.
I guess we have a
question.
It's
his scientific realization of currents, the fact he was able to depict it so perfectly well, and the insanity of a mental hospital that he actually captured.
Okay.
True. That's the beauty of Starry Night. Listen. I can't.
Thank you.
Everybody tells me the same thing. Everybody tells me the same thing. I know this. I get it. I know the history.
He used his fingers as brushes in some point.
That's even more impressive.
That's crazy.
I'm not going to say that's not
crazy.
Impressive. I can't appreciate it.
The genius.
I just don't like it. Maybe I want you to take a look at that from his perspective. Maybe you belong there.
I'll go to Oral's France anytime.
I'll tell you, I got to be honest. I am not poo-pooing it.
No,
whatsoever.
Again,
you understand that.
I completely understand. It's again,
like it.
I'm pointing out, and he's pointing out the subjectiveness of a piece of art. So
I hesitate to say this. I really hesitate to say it. Really had to pull it up. I hate to say this on YouTube. I really do, because I know people are going to, as soon as I say this, people are going to lose their minds. I've said this in the office, and people have.
Oh, you're going to say Kirby?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
People have lost their minds on me. I'm not a big fan of Jack Kirby. I'm just not, especially 70s Kirby. 70s Kirby and the square fingers drive me out of my mind.
I love those square fingers. I love those.
Drives me out of my mind. Now, give me 60s Monsters Kirby or even Captain America 1. I'm all great with that. I can handle that. But 70s Kirby, I can't.
It was the gloves, because if you that's why I like the squareness of the.
I'm about to get rocked on YouTube. I know I am.
Joe Quesada did an homage to that with the first Guardian Daredevil story, where if you notice, the gloves on Daredevil are all square. So it's just like, and I love that. Again, it's just again art.
I'm
subjective.
A bigger fan, and I promise. I am a fan of a lot of artists. I'm not poo-pooing any artists by any means. I'm just a bigger fan of realism. I'm a bigger fan of photorealism, realism in general. I don't know why. Alex Ross, I love him.
I appreciate it. I love Alex Ross, but I also like, again, Chris Samney for the cartooniness of it.
Right.
It's the artist and the way he's able to portray the image and say, wow, it's cartoony, but it's like a Bruce Timm. It's cartoony, but it's still
I
amazing.
love Bruce Timm. For some
Exactly,
reason.
but it's very cartoony.
Right.
So it's not as realistic as you would like it, or whatever.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. So please don't take this as a time to go off on me. Most people do anyway. I'm used to it in the office. But as you get to know me, I'm very opinionated, which is fine. I do that on purpose, and people know where I stand. But at the same time, I'm just not a Kirby fan. Would I own a Kirby? That's a different story. I would own a Kirby if it was the right piece. I mean, the Journey into Mystery 108 splash that we had, that one spoke to me. Like, if I had to have a Kirby piece, I like that better Captain America 59 splash, or the Tales of Suspense 59 splash. I wanted the Journey to Mystery 108 splash. I thought it was phenomenal.
I think both of them were incredible.
Every page in that story was beyond belief. Again, this is personal preference.
Yes.
I can like artists and not like artists. Sienkiewicz is the same way. There are certain Sienkiewicz pieces that I absolutely love, and then other ones I'm like, it's too impressionistic for me.
Okay.
You know.
Another thing you probably don't like, or you've mentioned that you don't like, you see the Superman Kurt Swan page, right? But it's actually one of the first Elseworlds, where Jor-El is the bad guy that actually blew up Krypton.
I can't stand non-canon. It makes my head explode.
This is Jor-El, which destroyed Krypton for revenge on his wife, and this is actually Lex-El, which is Lex Luthor as Superman coming to Earth, which is the rocket is crash landing, and Jonathan and Martha Kent are actually Bonnie and Clyde, people that die on the impact of Superman landing on Earth.
That's a riot.
Again, if anybody, Superman is one of those characters that he is how you write him, and he pretty much is a god. He can do anything on Earth. They've done the Elseworlds where he's under a red sun fighting Muhammad Ali and all that stuff. But he is a god. And the only reason he is how we know him, which the word I always use to describe Superman is wholesome, is because of his upbringing by Jonathan and Martha Kent.
And the one book I haven't read that I've always wanted to is where he lands in Russia.
Well, that's where I was getting to.
Yeah.
That, to me, is my favorite Superman story.
I actually want to read that.
Because it not only shows you what happens if Superman didn't land in the perfect spot in Kansas, it's also the basic idea of nature versus nurture.
Right.
It's like the nurture of him landing where it was is how he became. But it also shows you, even though he landed in Russia, he still wants to help society. So it's in his being to be good. It's just that he landed in America and grew up with American ideals. And in that Red Sun storyline, he grew up in Russia and grew up with Russian and Soviet ideals.
Right.
So, but it's not that he's a bad guy, and it actually proves the opposite. It's just, again, a great story.
Right.
And I've always loved those non-canons. Again, going back to What If and Marvel and stuff like that,
which I'm not a fan of as much. And the reason is because I have a very structured mind. That there's just no way about it. I have a hard time coping with things that I feel aren't real, so to speak. One of the things that comic book collecting and reading to me was always real because it was a way for me to escape.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get that.
One of the problems that I had with DC, and this is why I gravitated Marvel and not DC, was I had an Action Comics, I think it's 404. I think it's 404. It might be whatever one where Superman's flying with Lois Lane. They just got married. He's carrying the car.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
I had that when I was a kid. I was very, very young. Now, I knew based on the movies and based on other readings of Superman that I had read that Superman never married Lois Lane. But in that book, he had. And I was too young to understand that was Earth too.
Yes.
Okay. And so I couldn't comprehend that, and it upset me so greatly because it wasn't part of what I knew.
Well, what you got introduced to.
Right.
Yes,
and so I stopped reading DC.
Oh.
Just all of DC. I couldn't cope with that kind of it wasn't right. And when I went to Marvel, it was more structured for me, which is so I was able to read it.
And again,
I understood it.
And DC at that time was doing a lot of what they called, instead of Elseworlds, imaginary stories, where Superman would have died, or Superman went back in time. And
I read those now when we get them in, and I lose my mind. I can't stand them.
I love Caveman Superman, where they fight.
I can't cope. I can't cope.
Again, it to me, it always brought to the comic bookiness. It was a one and done story. We know what he is, this person and whatever. But what if, like, again, and it did a whole new story and a new point of view on the character.
I wanted to see progression of day to day, even though Peter Parker, for example, didn't age over the course of a bunch of years.
And it took him 20-something years to graduate high school.
I wanted to see progression of the character. I just did.
I get it.
I'm very linear. I can't help it. I'm sorry, guys.
But again, going back to this Superman, Kurt Swan Superman page, great image of, again, an origin story, but origin story of an Elseworld. So,
and a great artist.
A great artist, and under $500.
Did you purposely pick under $500 items, or is it just picking things that speak to you?
I was going through stuff that speak to me, and then I was trying to keep it under, because there was like a Joe, which is again crazy. All these pieces you've seen in under $5,000, and these next ones are under $1,000 or $2,000. And then you have a Joe Mad piece of Uncanny X-Men where Rogue is destroying a robot, and that's already at $5,000. So it's just like, you can, again, it's X-Men, it's Rogue, it's a great action piece, it's Joe Mad. It's hard to get his pieces. He's a video game designer now as well, and he doesn't do as much comics. But it's just to show you the difference, and they're both great pieces of art.
Right.
And all this is, again, I'd love to, like, again, if they go cheap enough, I'm definitely bidding on this.
By the way, we like, if we didn't have mortgages, if we didn't have rent, we would go broke with our paychecks.
Oh,
again, and we don't get any special. By the way, we don't get any. We don't get any discounts whatsoever. A lot of people think that we do. It's kind of silly. We pay the buyer's premium just like everybody else. Taxes, everything. It's as high as we want to spend the money on. And we're not pushing the bids to push the bids, because we're trying to own them.
We're collectors ourselves, and
we
it's just
love
like
this stuff.
And my favorites, again, like I tell people, one of the songs that basically defines my whole life as a collector, because again, I've been in comic book stores since I was 16, is I sold my soul to the company store. So again, now going to a Doctor Strange piece, not a Steve Ditko Doctor Strange,
or a Bruner.
Not a Bruner, but Al Milgrom. Al Milgrom was an editor of Marvel, a great artist, very prolific, did any book that needed to be done at the time. And again, look at this 3/4 splash page. Great Doctor Strange fighting evil villain. And again, if I'm not mistaken, this is the Agamotto or something like that, or the tentacles. And again, just a great splash, great piece of art to have on your wall. I think it is at $1,000-something, but it's not a $20,000 piece like a Bruner. It's not a $100,000 piece like a Ditko. And again,
or a $200,000 piece like a Bruner Doctor Strange #1 cover.
Again, and it's huge image of Doctor Strange, Clea, all great and great characters, a great image. Just again, I really hope somebody keeps on bidding on this one. That's why I brought it.
I told my wife because she likes this too, and she, we're filling up our walls very fast with animation cells and artwork and things like that. But I had to do the newsletter this week for next week, for the next week's sale, and the next week's art sale to me has so much stuff in it. I could lose 2 paychecks on that. And I told her, I said, I don't even know how I'm going to choose. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's got so much in it for me that I like.
Again, it's like the signatures for me.
The signature for you. Yeah.
And now, again, a Ditko piece. Like I was saying, this is the piece that there was a comparable one last week and it was from The Fly. Here we have the last 3 panels, the character in costume, like we were talking about, why pieces go for more than less and stuff like that. It's a Steve Ditko The Fly piece from 1984. Right now, I think it's hovering in between $1,000 and $2,000. The previous comparable piece last week sold for $10,000. So again, a Ditko page from a comic that he was known for, mind you, not Spider-Man, not Doctor Strange, but a comic that he was known for, The Fly. And it's an affordable piece compared to, like I said, even some of the DC stuff, because this is Archie imprint. Some of the DC stuff like Beware the Creeper or Hawk and Dove go for much, much more than again, the Fly piece. So, great. and that I left this cardboard to hide your.
Good to hide mine.
Hide your sneak peek piece.
I only brought one item, art piece item.
A sneak peek.
I brought a sneak peek. Our head of social media really liked last time that I did a sneak peek of a signature sale item that we have in the sale. It will be in September, but it has not
been listed yet.
It's not, well, it just got its listing today, but it also hasn't had a picture yet. It will get imaged as soon as I'm done here. But this piece is important to me because it's one of my clients, and so I go crazy because I always root for my clients. I'm their biggest cheerleader. X, I know you're the biggest cheerleader for your clients. Nothing always goes as we expect. Sometimes it goes lower. Sometimes it goes higher.
For much more. And that's always a great thing. When it goes for
the
much
funny
more.
thing about art is kind of what we were talking about. We had the G.I. Joe 21 cover, and we play detective a lot. We don't know what people have, and people won't tell us immediately what they have because they think it's worthless. Because that particular piece
he thought
was a great one.
It was a throwaway.
He's like, I only bought it for $150, and it's not worth anything. It's probably only worth like a couple hundred at this point.
And now my Batman covers. And
I'm going, you don't know what you have. And I said to him, I go, this is worth at least $25,000. And everybody else is looking at me like I'm crazy. No, this is worth $75,000. And it hammered for something close to $350. I think it was like $325. And so that's kind of what we say. We don't really know art. We kind of guess the best we can, and we were way off. Everybody was way off.
We'd rather be conservative,
absolutely,
with the previous results than be overly optimistic and then fall short of that.
Right. So, but we were way off. But this is kind of one of those items that I'm going to be way off on. So. Welcome to, and I know Tommy has a better picture to show you. Welcome to the Wolverine miniseries number 4, page 19 page that I just got in yesterday. This is an amazing page. It's part of his Frank Miller, origins, so to speak.
Wolverine origins.
Wolverine origin. How he became Wolverine, but also really his Japanese background. It's really what it was.
Him going to Japan and trying to marry Yuriko, and again, eventually going through the process and it didn't end up marrying her. And this is one of the pieces that her dad didn't want him, a gaijin, or to marry his daughter, which is again
very taboo in the culture,
almost a princess in the culture. And this is the moment that Wolverine comes to prove his worthiness to her father, which again is the bad guy in the storyline.
So we say we don't know, and a lot of things depend. So if Wolverine had his claws out, if Wolverine had his costume on, if there was a lot of action and there were a lot of panels, we would say, okay, this could go for X amount of money. This is one of those very rare instances where you don't have those major things, but also could go for a lot of money because it's a very important part of the storyline.
It's a pivotal moment
in it. It's very pivotal.
It's Frank Miller.
But it's Frank Miller, and it's also from the miniseries. So there's a lot of weighing to do. What's this really going to go for? I don't know.
Again, it's early Wolverine, because before that he had appeared in X-Men and Incredible Hulk. This is the first time he had his own title.
Right.
Again,
Very, very defining in the
very big,
80s.
very big deal. And again, the artistry of the shadowing, just like the Milton Caniff piece when he was in the jungle. Again, this is to show you how they use light, how they use shadows, and this is just not a commercial piece or just like a drawing that is just for comics. This is an artist working his skill to show you true art again,
Right.
and storyline telling, and it's almost like a storyboard in a movie, but it's much more detailed.
Right. So this will be up on the website really soon.
Shortly.
The description will be there. The picture won't be for another few days for sure. But the catalog is real close. We're right on a deadline this week. So the catalog's in the next week or two. But welcome to our Frank Miller Wolverine page. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited for my client. I know he's going to be very happy.
The use of negative
the
light.
use of negative space there, even though this is blank.
Yeah.
The use of that actually lends itself to the image.
Whole image.
So
and again, that whole "Am I worthy now?" That's again
right.
The following pages again is the main fight, and the outcome. Of course, most people know that he pops his claws right in front of the guy's face. So.
Like he normally does anyway. My favorite is when he pops two of the claws and puts it on either side. It's, that's always been my favorite with Wolverine when he pulls that move. But I love this page. This is one of my I would say one of my prouder moments. It's my first Miller piece that I've got.
Okay.
So I kind of define my career by am I able to get. Huh?
Let's leave it here.
No, I was going to put the books up there too. So,
okay.
I define my career personally by can I get big name artists from clients because it's important. I've had a Snoopy or a Peanuts page, or a daily. Now I have a Miller piece. I've had Zach, things like that, and Hannigan with the G.I. Joe page, Dave McKean. But I have missed the really big ones like Frazetta, because I'm not there yet. I'm not that big in the art world, and people don't know me, and they have other connections for those things.
I think it's also that they're not. Again, those artists sometimes don't come up as often.
That's very true.
It's just like I got lucky enough to get a Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson, and it's like there's not a lot of us.
Let me tell you how hard those are.
Basically, that's what I'm saying. That's where it's getting to. It's just, sometimes it's just a lot of luck.
So I've gotten lucky a few times. You've gotten lucky a lot more because you've had. I like
art. I like art. So, and I'm on Comic Art Fans. I talk to a lot of the other collectors. I still buy because I try to get as much as I can, and particularly Daredevil or X-Men. But I have my favorite artists, and I still have my holes that I'm missing, and I'd like to fill those holes with the names that, like, I'm still missing a Miller, I'm still missing a Sienkiewicz. So.
Right. So. Well, on to my comic books, and this is Brian's, why I love this, and you should too section. I don't normally gravitate to modern age books. I don't normally say modern age books. They just don't have their age. I do like a few of them. It's not something, I never poo-poo any comic book. But in my case, I'm more of a Golden Age fan, Silver Age, Spider-Man, that sort of thing. But especially Golden Age, if I have to go to Golden Age. Pre-code horror is some of my favorite. Is probably my favorite genre. Good girl art, romance. I love all of those things. But the first thing I'd like to show you are a few modern age books, particularly this Batman Adventures 12 that's in this weekly sale. Why I love this, why you should too, Harlequin is never going to leave. Harlequin is there for the ages, and this is her first appearance. this is a 9.6. It's as close to the highest grade as you're going to get. And it is a newsstand copy of all things. So a 9.6 newsstand. Now, we can have an argument all day long. You pointed out I wouldn't normally have done that. I'm not a fan of the newsstand
Again, it's
argument.
it's a subgenre, and there's people that are
If
paying.
you say so.
There's people that are paying big money for
There
them,
are.
so it's worth noting.
It is worth noting, I guess.
So.
I just, to me, it's like twisting a knife in my back. It drives me nuts. But that being said, Harley Quinn is important. She has proven now to be incredibly important in the DC universe.
One of the most popular recent characters.
One of the most popular. 94 was when she came out. That is very, very new for such a major character. And one that was one of the few items, few characters ever to be made for TV first and then migrated into the books.
Yeah.
There are only a handful that you can name. I can only name 2 or 3 off the top of my head, her and Livewire being another one. But there are very, very few that were made for TV first and then migrated to comics. Usually it's the other way around.
Well, again, you go back a decade or a decade and a half, and the toys, Transformers and all these toys, superhero for DC, superpower,
right.
They created those toys, and then they created the comic lines to sell those toys.
Not very common.
Not at all. Not at all.
Usually it's the
other way around. Yes.
The second book I would show you, and why you should care, would be this awesome classic Star Wars Returns of the Jedi #1. I pull this up because, first of all, Golden Age and post Golden Age into the 50s is known for their bondage, is known for their good girl art, but also what started the downfall of comics in general and why they were targeted by Dr. Wortham. And this kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier with Comic Code Authority, with Seduction of the Innocent. But now you see in the modern age, you can actually have this and you get away with it. This is the classic Star Wars scene where Leia's captured by Jabba.
And she just killed him.
Still has the collar. I don't know if he's dead yet.
It looks like
it's not wrapped around his neck yet, but it will be soon. I think it's foreshadowing. But this is the classic scene in Return of the Jedi where she kills Jabba. And this is right, to me, it's right before. You might say it's right after. It doesn't matter. It's subjective. But that is, to me, you couldn't ask for anything more if you want a Star Wars cover. To have this cover. To have the original art of that, plus R2-D2 in
it's
it.
Adam Hughes cover. That's what I was going to point out. Again, one of the good girl, best known good girl modern artists. Again,
it would cost you an arm and a leg.
Again,
but I would sell your arm and a leg for it.
Adam Hughes has a way of drawing women, and he became famous because of it.
Right.
He actually started in Penthouse Comics. So
now that I didn't know. I did not know that. Okay, we've already done that. Talking about pre-code horror, which is really my love of comics. When I still collect comics, I do love pre-code horror. Pre-code horror, especially because that was what started the downfall of the industry, EC Comics. But there were a lot of covers out there for shock value. This is one of them.
Yeah.
And
that's not that bad.
No, what's funny is, but the perspective is frightening.
Yes.
And I like the perspective
and the imagination of what's going to happen.
What's going to happen and the fear. But when it comes down to it, the books themselves, if the parents were reading the books like they should have been, kind of watching over their kids, they would have known that the bad guy always gets theirs in the end. And that's kind of what always blew me away about EC and them being targeted so much is I've read a lot of the EC stories. I've read them. I've looked at them a lot, and the bad guy always loses. He always gets his or hers. And so it has always blown my mind that they really were targeted as bad and being so bad for the youth, but people who were reading them knew that they weren't, because they were really being taught, if you did bad, this is what's going to happen to you. You will get the chair. You will have something bad. Karma will come back at you.
Yes.
So I'm very surprised. To me, I've always been surprised at that double standard. Usually I bring CGC books, but this kind of goes, to the good girl thing. I've always wanted this book. Oh, this book is up. This book, I love Torchy #4. This is as classic good girl as you can get. I have actually wanted this book for probably 25, 30 years. This is probably only maybe, I would say, the third or fourth copy I've ever seen. It doesn't come around that often.
Well, Torchies don't come around that
Well,
often.
not only that, but because once they go into
Yeah.
a collection, they stay there for a very long time. This is one of those. Usually there's a, Bill Ward, there's a hey, look, in there, either by Kurtzman or Ward does some of the artwork, but Torchy himself.
This is a Gil Fox cover.
It
which
is,
great.
yeah.
So.
It's not the Ward covers, but it's my favorite cover of the Torchy series, and there are only 6 of them. I think.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
There's not a lot, but it is by far one of my favorites, especially because she's looking at the submarine base, but the submarines are all looking at her.
That's a very close submarines.
Right. Up periscope, I guess. How many subs are there? Like 10. They would all be running into each other, I think. This kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier. And by the way, always remove tape, please. I beg you, please remove the tape. Anytime you have to deal with anything, remove the tape. Okay, Major Victory Comics. We have a great selection of Golden Age this week in this sale. There's over 45 pre-code horror comics in this week's sale. There's an incredible amount of Golden Age, but some rare Golden Age. And Major Victory would be one of them at a very good price. Now, we just started the sale. So when you see your, what is it at?
It's $0.
$0. When you see that, it won't last that way. That's normal for very early. It only started yesterday. Yeah. But the point here being is everything was driven towards the war. Yeah. It didn't matter what comic it was. That while this only lasted for 3 issues, I think every single one of them were war covers. Every single thing, as I said before, was driven towards the war.
Propaganda.
We had to get everybody on board because that was the only way the country was A, going to get out of the Great Depression, but B, also stop this insidious advance of taking over the world. And so I like books like this because you don't normally see them, but you also get this part of history that you just love to see. You just love to see it. It doesn't matter if it's in a fair to good range or it's in a good minus range. You get it while you have a chance.
Again,
you don't run into it much.
And again, these comics don't come out in high grade, and if they do, you're looking at spending significant amount of money.
Money that
is
I
just
don't have. The things I could have had. I was so stupid when I was young. That's a problem with being young versus you always think you know what you're talking about when you're young. Even when I was in my 20s and I had books, I should have kept them. Stupid. I'm a big romance fan also, not because of the stories, not because of the insides, because they're kind of hokey when you read them. But I'm a big Baker fan. I love Matt Baker. We have this great showcase auction going on of Matt Baker's books.
There's a couple pieces of art in there,
and there's some art in there too. Some great items in there. I'm actually getting a Matt Baker piece in, which is great of art. That's going to be amazing. But just in general, one of the reasons that I like the romance stuff is because, and this is not L.B. Cole because he didn't work for Atlas, but L.B. Cole covers. L.B. Cole did a lot of the romance covers for the I can't even remember the publisher, but off the top of my head for some reason, I'm blanking. But he did a lot of the artwork.
Star Comics.
Yeah. And so I try to collect anything I can, right? I try to collect what I can when I see L.B. Cole, even if they're romance covers, because he has such a different way of clashing the colors. They're very different.
That's again a very black light, day glow
Right.
type of stuff.
And there are a lot of people out there, by the way, who would not like that. But that is just one of those weird things. For some reason, as I was young, when I was doing this, when I was in my 20s, it caught my eye and I liked it. It's what you gravitate to. It tends to speak to you. It evokes a reaction,
Yeah.
an emotion, like you said. But this is very LB Cole-ish. The clash of the colors, the yellows, the reds, the blues, the greens, and it's not LB Cole, but it's sort of mimicking his style a little bit, which is kind of why I like it.
And it was made to pop. Basically, is to grab your attention. And that's why.
By the way, Tommy, can you scroll down to the census on that? Can you pull that back up and scroll down? I think there are 0 on the census. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
No, it went too far.
It's not showing. I'm fairly certain there are none on the census. I don't think there are any copies, which blow my mind because that means it's not very common. It might not be worth a crazy amount of money, but not to have any on a census is not normal. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's 0 on the census, 0. So that one to me will be a very targeted book because it's not around very common.
And somebody needs to finish a run, basically.
Good luck finding all those together at once. My last book for the day is a major key. Right? A major key. I mean, it's a major key.
It's a major
key magazine.
It's a piece. It is a piece of history.
Yep.
It's something that changed the way magazines were made. It started a genre of its own.
A revolution of all things.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't so. That's the other thing. It was not. We know it as a sort of a nudie magazine, but it was more also. It was so popular because of the articles.
Right.
A lot of writers started their novels in Playboy and stuff like that. So
right. So we have a Playboy one. What version is this? This is.
There's a star version. There's
right.
a page
this
3
one is
version,
the normal version,
and there's a normal version.
So this is the normal version, and we're talking about star versions because there would be the red star. There would be
right
a
by the
red
Playboy.
Star right here. In one version,
and then
page
there's 3
version
actually has the number of the page 3 on the thing, where other versions didn't have
this version
won't have the page 3 unnumbered.
We don't know. Nobody knows. It's kind of lost to history as to why those versions are the way they are.
And which one's first is also they don't know.
Right. It was either a way to separate the print runs, or I don't know if they had different publishers, like in different areas.
It might have been something for distribution as well.
Right.
So
right. That being said, the reason I brought this out wasn't so much for the content internally; it was for the historical aspect of it. We get a lot of questions as to, hey, there are a lot of Playboy collections out there. Hey, will you take my Playboys? Here's the
a lot of people. Well, we'll take a one.
We'll take a one.
We'll take the first year.
We'll take
pretty
the
much.
first 2 or 3 years,
and then it drastically drops. Again, if you have certain ones in high grade, like the Pamela Anderson issue, or Jenny McCarthy, or the Seinfeld issue, they're worth something, but it's not worth what the internet says. Like they're the most valuable, like the Conehead or the Jerry Seinfeld. It's not the most valuable. The most valuable is this one.
Right.
And it really goes down from there. Number 3 is valuable because it has Betty Page in it as well, or 4.
I think 3 is James Mann.
Okay.
James Mann's.
There's one that has Betty Page that's it's probably the second or third most expensive. So
right. The reason that we don't take full Playboy collections is there's so many, but it's the print run. So from 1953-54. The print run was very low, and obviously a lot of them got destroyed. Once you hit the 1960s,
once you hit the 60s,
they ramp up to 1 million per month. Think about that number, 1 million. Comic books didn't even come close to that number in the 60s. They weren't even They weren't even a quarter of that. Now you go to 1970s, they were ramped up to 5 million a month, 5 million printings.
And worldwide.
And
That's
worldwide.
the other
So
thing.
we do not take them because they're so dime a dozen. They're just too common.
And then they kept well because they had good stock of paper
Right.
and stuff like that. A lot of collectors collected them and they kept them. They didn't sell them. And we're seeing that generation that kept and collected all that now bringing it out, or their families bringing it out and selling. And we've had an influx of a lot of them. As you can see historically, number one in the last 15 to 20 years has went really high and then it has continuously gone low, and right now is pretty much leveled out because it's gotten to a price that everybody that wants one will be able to buy one in a certain grade.
Right.
Now the really high grades, of course, will always be for a premium, but there is a lot of them out there, and I think the rarest one is the Star version. So
Is that the
I
one
think
that
so.
they say is the rare one?
I think that they have at least less of those graded on the census.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Well, that's why we wanted to show it to you, is because it's historically important, but also we really can't take a lot of
them.
You know, we
Again.
will take the early ones by all means.
Yeah.
You know, if you guys want to contact us, if you do have the first one, I'll take that all day long.
And again, Hugh Hefner, he worked for Vogue or GQ, or I think it was Vogue, and he left. He left a very successful job to start this, and he almost went broke doing it. So
Well, he wasn't broke at the end of it. And
again,
lived a lifestyle in his pajamas. He lived in his pajamas.
The smoking jacket.
A smoking jacket. He lived in his pajamas and lived the life. I mean,
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard having 7 girlfriends.
I'm married. I wouldn't know. I never. Let's not go there. Why do you got to bring things like that up? Anyway, that's it for us. We really do appreciate you guys joining us. Even if you're joining us for a little bit, we still appreciate it. We like to have fun. We like doing this. We're going to be doing this every other week from now until they yell at us to stop. So I am Brian Wiedman.
And I'm Xavier Chavez.
If you need to get a hold of us, you can always email us. You can find us at ha.com. You can see us there. Those are our emails. You can find me on Instagram at Heritage Comics Greater. Thank you for joining us. 2 weeks from now, hopefully I will have another guest. I think I already have somebody lined up. I talked to Rick. You want to bring Rick on? Rick will be fun.
Yeah, Rick would be fun.
Rick is
I think,
a huge Golden Age collector.
And 2 weeks, it might be close enough to the signature, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. We'll have some really good stuff there, too. So join us then. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks to Yaniv for joining us earlier, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Have a good one.